Cube Radio.
You are listening to the Car Guide Podcast with Louis-Philippe Dubé and Gabriel Gélina.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the 20th episode of the Car Guide Podcast. Gab, 20 episodes already.
We've driven a lot of cars. We've covered a lot of miles.
Right, yeah. And especially in the last few weeks, we've been walking, doing a lot of walking.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe less than the previous years, because we always sit here and say how, the auto shows, they're not what they used to be pre-pandemic and whatnot. And there's a lot less walking, but there's still a lot to see and a lot of unveilings in the last few weeks. We took a little break because there was too much to do and we couldn't find a time to put out together a recording. However, that doesn't mean that there's nothing happened, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today, namely the Tokyo Auto Show. Which is now the Japan Mobility Show, which is in the last episode. I couldn't get it right now. I've done my homework. But also the L.A Auto Show, which is also has mobility in the official name, but let's call it the L.A Auto Show, which happened not too long ago. And a couple of much less happened at the L.A Auto Show. I was looking at you traveling to Japan and seeing your coverage in Tokyo and saying, wow, this is actually the only show that was, that had
meaningful this year.
That had a lot to it, and that's the only one I didn't show up to.
Well, I'll tell you, I think the Japanese car makers, basically we spoke about this the last time, but Japan essentially closed down for COVID. And there were no foreigners allowed and things like that. And now with the Tokyo Mobility Show, Japan Mobility Show in Tokyo, I think that the Japanese manufacturers really wanted to make a statement that Japan is open for business again, so to speak, and that they've got new stuff that they wanted to show us. And quite frankly, even though the show is small in size, it's at the Tokyo Big Site, which is a convention center they built a couple of years back. But it doesn't use all of the halls of the Tokyo Big Site, because that's
the one that looks like an upside down pyramid.
Exactly,
metal
that's
pyramid,
the entrance looks like an upside down pyramid, But at any rate, there was a lot of new stuff here from. Not only definitely from Toyota, from Mazda, even Subaru had a concept car there as well. Nissan had some concepts, but it was mostly that. It was mostly concept cars showcasing electric mobility.
Right.
So, you and I know that, with the exception of Nissan with the Leaf and the Ariya, all of the other manufacturers are pretty much, Japanese manufacturers are pretty much way behind as far as electrification is concerned. Mm-hmm. And so you get the feeling that they're trying to now, get on the bandwagon and showcase everything that's coming with regards to electric mobility. It was the case definitely for Toyota, which showed two concepts, an SUV, but also a sports car. That's another thing about the Japan Mobility Show.
There's a lot of sports cars.
Exactly, lots of sports cars.
Which we're not used to seeing this year.
Absolutely not.
Crossover after crossover.
Exactly.
In
so
American shows.
In many ways, it was very refreshing that way, So obviously, Mazda showed the iconic SP concept car, which is sort of like if they would reinterpret the Mazda MX-5 as an electric car and things like that. And it was definitely one of the most striking vehicles there. So you kind of expect that from Mazda, that they do a sports car, but I certainly didn't expect that Toyota would show up with a new two-door, two-seater electric sports car, which they call the FTSE concept. So again, there's not much in terms of hard facts about these cars. They're not telling us about the battery capacity, about the range, and things like that. But there's one thing that Toyota made very clear when we were there, Toyota and Lexus, as a matter of fact, is that even though they've been showcasing concepts at the Tokyo Motor Show, the Japan Mobility Show, they said, these concepts are very close to production.
Okay.
And when you look at the styling of them, they're pretty radical.
Yeah.
For Toyotas.
For something that's close to production.
Exactly.
Toyota.
So the key thing, I think, is that, especially that sports car, the Toyota FTSE, if they're able to produce a 2-seater sports car that looks like that with electric drive, that's going to be really
it's going to be meaningful for Toyota.
Exactly. And the same is true also of their crossover concept. Again, very angular kind of styling, a little bit like the BZ4X, but like cranked up to the max kind of thing, dialed up to 11, as we say, like in Spinal Tap. So it's definitely a very, very different look for them. And it's the same also with Lexus. Lexus showed up, with two concepts, sort of like a 4-door sports sedan, and also an ultra luxury vehicle that looks a little bit like a cross between a station wagon and an SUV.
Okay.
So again, those are two cars that sort of like symbolize or showcase, if you will, the new design direction for Lexus. And again, very short on stats, very short on what is actually the hardware for this. They keep talking about their new batteries with prismatic cells, high performance, things like that, which will have apparently range that is greater than the actual current electric cars. But they, again, no hard numbers.
A lot of promises,
exactly,
and a lot of show, right?
Exactly.
Because you said angular. I saw a couple of concepts from Nissan,
yes,
which looked like straight out of Blade Runner. I mean, not much to say about those, but the one I really want to talk about is the one from Mazda, which is the Ioniq SP.
Right.
Kind of reminds me of the time I went to the Tokyo Motor Show when back in 2015 there was the RX Vision,
yes,
which said, well, it was like a longer nosed sports car, and they said, well, we're going to bring back the rotary engine, the that everybody loved in RX-7, RX-8, maybe a little less, but RX-7, and it kind of, we never heard about it after that. We've heard that Mazda we've heard blurbs about Mazda wanting to bring back the rotary engine as a generator, like a range extender.
Yeah,
and this is pretty much what we're talking about with the Ioniq XP concept at Mazda.
Well, it's going to be interesting because in terms of design, this car has overtones of the MX-5, but also of the last RX-7 that they built. And so it's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, it's beautiful car. But again, it is the rebirth of the rotary engine for this car. So we're talking about a 2-rotor motor for the which will be in the right in the center, so to speak, of the car. And a key thing also is that Mazda is really keen on making sure that this car will be able to run on synthetic fuels, perhaps even on hydrogen. So those are all the avenues that are being explored with this. And we're looking about 365 horsepower. It doesn't sound like much, but the car is very light. It's like 1,400 kilos.
Yeah.
So it's getting, the current Mazda MX-5 is like, I think 1,100 or 1,200 kilos or something like that.
Right. So it has a lot more power.
Exactly. More power and not so much more weight. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether or not that Ioniq SP concept gets greenlit and turns into perhaps the new sports car from Mazda. That would be a really cool thing,
Speaking about other vehicles that are making a comeback, the Prelude at Honda was the first we saw it in Tokyo concept, and last week in L.A. as well. It was on a show floor, but the Prelude is pretty interesting because it kind of looks. there's no information about this car at this point, right? It looks, I feel that the front end, I think it looks like a Prius a little bit. And we're joking around with the guys saying it's like a Prius coupe, concept. If you look at the front, which the new Prius, I think it's good looking, but it kind of has those, horizontal lines that kind of fade away on the side of the front end. A lot of talk about the car, not a lot of substance, like you mentioned. We know that Honda's working with GM on certain electric projects.
Yeah, less and less now.
Yeah, because they said that the cheap cars won't happen between the two of them. Honda didn't have that much technology, so they needed a platform to get started. Like with the Prologue SUV. If it's going to happen with the Prelude, we don't know, but pretty interesting stuff that they're bringing about the iconic Prelude name.
Yeah, sure. In terms of size, it looks a little bit the same size as the current Nissan Z or even the current Toyota Supra. So kind of like, still small. The key thing with this one is going to be, they say that they don't want to try to create a competitor for the Civic Type R. But in terms of,
they don't want to cannibalize the sales of.
So I think they're gonna try to do something more like in the sport touring kind of vein. But again, it still is just a concept,
right?
And certainly it's a name that tracked very well for Honda in North America. Like this car was sold here, I think, from 1979 to 2001, and it was one of those cars. A Prelude was something that you recognized immediately as being a Prelude. It's a little bit less the case with this new model, but like you said, the design of the front end looks a little bit like the Prius, but when you look right from the A-pillar back, it's very much a swoopy, a swoopy two-door. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. On to the L.A. Auto Show, because that happened a little closer to this date. We were both on the floor to see some. Well, I will say it's a little more boring than the Tokyo Auto Show. However, not many sports car concepts, but very important models.
Yeah.
We saw the Subaru Forester, the Santa Fe that was unveiled earlier, but still North American debut for the Santa Fe. The Prelude was there, as we mentioned, and the Lucid Gravity SUV. So, I mean, let's start with also you got to drive the Ioniq 5N, which we can't really talk about, but interesting.
No, I can give you the driving impressions on that.
Yes,
but it was a funny situation. Because just before the Los Angeles Auto Show, or Automobility LA as they now call it.
That's the mobility name for the LA Auto Show I was looking for.
Just before that, I went to Korea. I went to Seoul in Korea to drive the Ioniq 5N, both on the roads, on public roads, but also at the Korea International Circuit. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but Korea actually hosted Formula One Grand Prix from 2010 to 2013.
Yep.
So we went to that same track to drive the Ioniq 5N on the track. And let me tell you, was of all the electric cars that I've driven, this one is by far the most engaging. And the reason for that is that they've really tuned the sound, and also they are replicating, if you will, all the sensations that you get behind the wheel when you're driving a sports car with an internal combustion engine and a double clutch gearbox. Now, let me make this clear. This car is electric.
Mind-boggling.
There is no.
I don't know what to think about that.
There is no double clutch gearbox in this car.
Yeah.
There is no engine, ICE engine that makes sounds. It doesn't exist.
Yeah,
so all of this is fake. Okay, but it works. It's amazing because there's a mode called ignition, as far as what they call the N Active Sound Plus system, and there's another mode called the N E Shift. So when you activate those two things, when you're driving on the track or on the road, basically what you're hearing through the 8 speakers that are inside the cabin, but also 2 speakers that are mounted outside the car, is 3 different sounds that you get to select. One is very boring. It's called Evolution. It sounds like every other electric car noise, like just generic kind of like buzz. One is very kind of quirky. It's called Supersonic and supposedly emulates the sound of a fighter jet. But the third mode, Ignition, like I mentioned, that gives you the feeling that you're inside a double clutch car with an internal combustion engine. So you're driving, picture this, you're driving down the track and you're shifting gears with the paddle shifters. So you hear the engine, the revs go up and then you shift. When you shift, there's a slight pause in the acceleration and then boom, when the next gear kicks in, you get that thrust again. When you're lifting off the throttle, the car burbles the engine, it burbles just like when you lifted off the throttle on the Elantra N or a Veloster N. When you're downshifting, it blips the throttle. But again,
realistically,
yeah, exactly.
Really,
so
and with all the double clutch cars you've driven, you felt like it was kind of a.
It was a total episode of cognitive dissonance in that that this is an electric car. It has 2 electric motors, and when you're going fast down the straight, both electric motors are spinning at 21,000 RPMs, but you see a tach that goes up to 8,000, and you have to remember to shift, because if you don't, you'll hit the so-called rev limiter and it'll go pop, 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 pop. But nothing of this is real.
Okay.
All of it is fake.
Well, yeah, of course.
All of it is done. And, it's amazing because when I was there, I met with Albert Bierman, who was once, way back in the day, was the head of the M division, the motorsport division for BMW. And when he retired from BMW, he was sort of like poached by Hyundai to put together the N division, N being for Nürburgring and Namyang being the design center for Hyundai.
Right.
So that's their high performance division. And he said, we started playing around with sound 6 years ago, but it wasn't quite what we wanted. We didn't really get what we wanted. So I challenged my engineers to invent some sort of shifting system for this car. And they didn't know the Ioniq 5N was not approved back then. It's just like, didn't even exist. But right away, like 6 years ago, they started thinking about developing something like that. And the engineer who put this system together is actually the engineer who put together the 8-speed double clutch gearbox in the Elantra N.
Okay.
So here is this guy who designed this mechanical thing, and now he's trying to reproduce the exact same feeling, but in a completely...
It's a computer software.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly, through software. And the thing is, it works. Because when you're driving down the track, you really feel like you're driving, like I said, a sports car with the paddle shifters and the double clutch gearbox. You get the exact same sensation.
I'm impressed.
So that's why I'm saying it's the most engaging electric car I've ever driven. Because, electric cars, you've driven them, I've driven them, the Taycans, whatever. You step on it, they go like hell in a straight line.
Yeah.
You get that. But this, it's not the fastest accelerating EV. It will not be the fastest around the Nürburgring racetrack or anything like that. But it's definitely the most fun EV that I've driven because it's so engaging, because with this ignition sound program and also the NE shift, it literally feels exactly like a sports car with the double clutch gearbox.
What about the weight? Because we always talk about
that's
the
the
weight.
only downside about this car, I would say, is the fact that it's like 2.2 metric tons, so it's like it's still a heavy car for sure, and that will be, of course, a limiting factor for speed through the corners and things like that. It rides on pretty wide tires on 21-inch rims, so the tire size and the wheel tire kind of helps with that. But again, mass is mass, like I always say.
Yep.
So when you're going through the corners, you really feel the weight of the car. But nevertheless, this trick that they've performed, this with software and with the sound and with the feeling of the shifting transmission, it's really mind-boggling.
Right.
It's really, and it's something. It's hard to explain. I can explain it like this, and people sort of get a sense for it, but when you get into that car and you turn those systems on, it fools you. It will fool you absolutely, and it's a really cool thing that Hyundai, the N division, have designed with this car and these systems to, again, because they say with the N division at Hyundai, driving still matters, and even though this is an EV, it's still got to give you that same kind of goosebumps when you're driving, and they've nailed it right on the head. It's
really
amazing.
Yeah. This is what everybody was worried about. And still worried about what's going to happen with driving pleasure and actual sportiness, quote unquote.
And Toyota has a concept car, electric, with a
stick
standard shift, stick shift. So again, I think people are realizing that EVs are efficient, EVs are fast in a straight line, but they're not that fun to drive. And so how do we put the fun to drive factor back in? That's what the Ioniq 5N is all about.
Impressive.
Yeah.
You got to see the Santa Fe, the new Santa Fe in L.A. It was already unveiled back in a couple of months ago, I think, for the world unveiling. But it was in L.A. and you got up close and personal. You can't talk about the driving impressions right now, but we'll hear about them at the next episode. But still, a vehicle that everybody's talking about. It's boxy. It's got a big rear gate. It's got an XRT, rugged, quote unquote, very, very trendy word now in the family vehicle industry, rugged. But still, there seems to be some substance there.
Yeah, indeed. The thing about this Santa Fe, first of all, it's the fifth generation for the Santa Fe. It's a big seller for Hyundai in North America. And with this new fifth generation Santa Fe, what you have is a bigger vehicle.
Right.
So it's longer in terms of its external dimensions. It's bigger. It's also much roomier to the point where it now has standard issue third row of seats. So again, they're trying to create a bit more separation between the Tucson, and the Santa Fe. So it's not quite as long as the Palisade, but it's pretty close. But the key thing as well is the styling. This thing looks like a Land Rover.
It does.
And then you could take away the Hyundai badging, put Land Rover badges on it, and there you go. That's your discovery. That's your that's your new
less
car.
Expensive, more reliable.
Yeah, exactly. So it looks very much, and yes, it was introduced a couple of months back, but this was its first sort of public appearance, so to speak.
Yeah, because we saw it only on photos.
Exactly. So what's interesting about this is that in terms of the package, in terms of the powertrains, it's pretty much carryover in that there are not many changes there, but it's really the styling and the interior. That's the star of the show here. They've dropped the 2.5 liter normally aspirated engine from the lineup, so you can only get it now either with a hybrid powertrain, which is a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder plus, of course, the electric motor.
The usual hybrid
and
package.
This will be the entry level model for Canada. And then at the top of the line, you've got the 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. That will be the higher end variants. Now, this strategy is exactly the opposite of what Hyundai is doing in the US. In the US, the 2.5 liter turbo is the base engine, and the hybrid is available, as an option or on the higher. So that's a bit of a difference there. In terms of the power, the hybrid drive, 232 horsepower, 271 pounds-feet of torque. And as far as the turbocharged engine, we bumped that up quite a bit, 277 horsepower, 311 pounds-feet of torque. A key differentiation factor as well is that the hybrid has a 6-speed automatic gearbox, whereas the turbocharged engine gets the 8-speed double clutch gearbox that you found in the Elantra N.
Right. Okay.
So a little bit of an upgrade there in terms of the gearbox, but it looks very square and boxy. But this new 5th generation of the Santa Fe is actually more aerodynamic than the outgoing model, the 4th generation model, which was kind of like a rounder. And when you think about that, you say, how can that be? It's because the engineers from Hyundai have picked up quite a few things from their development of the electric cars, the Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6. So there's like active flaps at the front and things like that. So there's a few things that help make, even though it's boxy, it's very aerodynamic. And, the biggest thing is of course that hatch, that rear hatch. That tailgate opens so big that you can really stuff all kinds of stuff in there, and that's their focus as well with the Santa Fe. They're trying to create a vehicle that's going to bridge the gap, sort of like between like urban driving and everyday driving the kids to school and things like that, but also going out to play on the weekend. And throwing your stuff in there, and that's why also they've added the XRT variant to the mix. Now this. Higher ride height, bigger wheels and tires, more like for off-roading, a lot of accessories like roof racks and things like that. So
I saw one on the show floor.
Exactly.
It looked pretty,
so it's a bit like the wilderness editions for the Subaru product, and just a little bit more adventurous for the off-roading. But in terms of the interior, I mean, this thing really looks good because they've literally taken the dash from the Ioniq 6. So you've got that whole
horizontal and then two screens and slightly curved. So each screen is 12.3 inches, I think. And also they've got the same shifter as on the electric cars and also on the Kona, which is on the
column. So that frees up a lot of space over on the console area.
Okay.
And in this console, which is accessible also not only from the front but also from the back. And you also have 2 charging pads for cellular phones.
Okay.
So that's pretty brilliant, because as a driver, you always put your phone down, but if you have a passenger, they can't charge.
Yeah, so you have to fight for the
exactly. So now there's 2 of them. So that's pretty darn cool. And like I said, it's and also another thing that's pretty cool, they've got 2 glove boxes on this car, and on the top one, there's a sort of like sterilization system with UVC rays. So basically it's sort of like a blue light, so to speak.
Yeah, okay.
So you put your cell phone in there or your car keys or your wallet or whatever, and as you drive, the light sort of like kills all the bacteria that's on it. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, that stuff technology came out during the dead of the pandemic. I remember when we used to go to Los Angeles and they would say, well, HVAC systems are now gaining with HEPA filters and very high-end UV, technology to be able to I guess, clean up bacteria from people from the outside world. And I remember the pitches. It was kind of with the time, going with the times.
Exactly. We don't have any information on the pricing for this vehicle, and that's, I think, a key thing. I think they're going to release pricing like 48 hours before it goes on sale or something like that. But it's coming to the market. The first variants that are coming to the North American market will be the turbocharged engine Santa Fe's, because they're built in Montgomery, Alabama, in the North American plant, whereas the hybrids will be coming from Korea. So just the transport by boat, things like that. So they'll be coming a little bit later. So in terms of pricing, it's pretty much a given that it's going to be a little bit more expensive, or maybe much more expensive than the outgoing model, which I think was retailing close to like 37, if I'm not remiss, like 37 to 45, or 39 to 47. It's in that range for the current model. So chances are the new one is going to be a little bit more expensive, but it's a much bigger vehicle with, again, 3 standard rows. Yeah, that's going to make a big difference.
Another vehicle that's outdoorsy type, the Subaru Forester. They call it the all-new Subaru Forester. I can tell you that it's not all new. We were
all new in quotation marks.
Yeah, that's right. We were expecting a lot more. It doesn't mean that there's no new stuff on the new Forester, but word was going around that there might be another engine, the 2.4 turbo. There might be a hybrid. Hybrid will come. I'll tell you about that later. But for now, it's pretty much a remodel, an outside remodel for the Forester for the 2025, because this is a 2025 model that we saw. The 2024 gets pretty much copy-paste from the 2023, which we'll see. The 2025 we'll see at a later date. We don't know exactly when. But remodel kind of looks like a... If you look at it from the front, a lot of people are saying it looks like an Explorer, like the front grille. We'll say that Subaru, it's not, the design is not one of the main factors. Still looks good. It looks like a Forester, but if you change it too much, I mean, people might not want to buy it. Subaru has a very, very loyal customer base, right? So a lot of carryover. It's a rounder shape, right?
Yeah.
The new Forester, it's rounded from every corner, so it kind of loses a little bit of shoulder space inside from what the engineers have told us. The opening from the tailgate's a little shorter, but marginally rounder, more aerodynamic, we assume. But still keeps the 2.5 liter, 4-cylinder engine, very, very sturdy engine that's pretty much everywhere in the Subaru lineup. Loses 2 horsepower, gains 2 pound-feet of torque. So, I mean, we're a CVT. Transmission is still the same, but Subaru says there's been changes here and there. We might see a little bit more efficiency from Subaru, however, from the Forester, but however, we haven't seen what
in the case of this vehicle and also the new Crosstrek. I think we can fairly say that the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Right.
As far as Subaru is concerned.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, I've been harping on this for years, but if there's one brand that's in need of a top designer, it's Subaru. Their cars are, I get it, they work, they have a loyal following, fan base, whatever, they're reliable, they sell all of them. But man, can you sex it up a little bit? Can you give us something that's nice to look at, that you don't, that when you're walking towards it or away from it, because, they're pretty darn boring looking in terms of styling.
Mm-hmm. But like you said, I mean, they work.
Yeah, sure.
Still, obviously, inside you get into the new Forester. It's pretty much the same. You get the vertical screen, new hardware, new firmware, new textures. But if you look at the picture from the interior, you'll see it's a copy paste from what it used to be. Right, the vents are the same place and whatnot. So functional. Very advanced and very stylish, but still very functional. I was talking about the hybrid version. Everybody's was waiting for the announcement for the hybrid version.
Yeah, of course.
Hybrid version will come 2026, maybe 2027. We'll see. It will be a collaboration with Toyota,
of course,
obviously, because that's how it works, and we'll be able to do that. But that's going to be a hot seller. The hybrid. Hopefully, they can make enough, because that's something that's the Subaru buyers are really waiting for the Forester. So that's pretty much it from what we saw from Subaru. I want to talk a little bit about the Lucid.
Yeah, sure.
Because Lucid, as you know, high-end EV company. The news are not very impressive from the company that, like after the L.A Auto Show, we said they unveiled how Lucid was losing a lot of money. It was hemorrhaging money from every vehicle. I mean, I read figures mathematically that every vehicle that comes out, it costs, $200,000 or $300,000 for this company to make them, because they're very, very expensive vehicles too. But it was about time for them to come up with an SUV.
Yeah, sure. If there's one company that I hope makes it, it's that one.
Yeah.
Because when you look at their tech, when you look at the size of their motors and the efficiency of their motors, the power that they get from such a small electric motor,
right?
It's amazing. And in terms of the battery tech that they've got, again, it's also cutting edge, and it's also making the demonstration that you don't need a huge battery, to get a lot of power and, significant range.
Yeah, it's like they're talking about 700 kilometers. That figure for the gravity.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, in terms of the styling inside, it looks really, really nice. Lots of room in there, especially in the third row. So again, this company, I know that financially times are really difficult for them, and we're not sure if they're going to make it. But if there's one company out there that I hope makes it, it's that one.
It's definitely different
because their tech is really, really cutting edge.
Yeah. A few key points from the Gravity. There's a frunk.
Yeah, exactly.
You can sit in it. I saw it at the L.A Auto Show.
Yeah, it's sort of like a reverse tailgate.
Reverse tailgate, so you can
sure.
like park from the front, I guess, when you're charging or watching the game or whatnot, and that's using that space usually is for cargo, but it has an additional uses to it, and also for pricing. I mean, they're talking about starting $80,000
That's
US.
in US dollar, obviously.
Yeah.
But still, when you look at
the sedan, the Air, it's a very expensive product now, and you're looking at $80,000. It's not that much. I mean, It's not that much for that type of vehicle.
So again, they're launching it. We're going to see how it goes.
Yeah.
They claim that they've already got orders and things like that. I get it. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of wealthy people out in California that are really want to stand out.
They're going to put down the money for them to have that
because
vehicle.
They don't want to drive what everybody else is driving, things like that. And this is the new hot thing. The way Tesla was the new hot thing when the Model S came out, but now this time it's this Lucid and the Gravity. But again, their tech is so cutting edge. If everybody could be making electric motors that are that small and that powerful, and would be really in business.
For efficiency.
So exactly.
And,
but also in terms of the power, it's amazing the power that they're able to crank out. From such small units.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it on the road and seeing if it's going to make it. So not too long ago, I headed to Spain to drive 2 out of 3 hybrid versions of the Porsche Cayenne. As you know, hybrid is expanding on the Porsche lineup with these new additions to the Cayenne lineup. And as it is, like always, they're kind of meddling and changing around the model names. Now the Turbo S E-Hybrid doesn't exist anymore. It's the Turbo E-Hybrid. And then to make it simple, Porsche Cayenne E-Hybrid, Porsche Cayenne S E-Hybrid, and Porsche Cayenne Turbo E-Hybrid are now the 3 hybrid models. So they kind of sandwiched it together. The base model I didn't get to drive. One of my colleagues, Julian, drove it a little later, so you can see it on the site if you're on the website if you're looking for impressions on that. But 2 very different models. One has the Turbo 6-cylinder 3-liter, and the other one has the 8-cylinder, which is
big stonking V8.
Yes, and same packaging. Coupe and traditional. I know how you love those coupes,
I love
SUV
them
coupes
to death.
And I'm going to talk about that a little later when we talk about the interior. But everything that Porsche has in terms of hybrid technology is in there. We took it to the racetrack near Barcelona, which is the Castelloli. Circuito de Castelloli is a private racetrack near Barcelona. I don't know if you know about that track.
It's a new one, I think.
Yeah. It looks pretty new. I don't know how old it is, but it's very, very small and very technical, which is kind of odd when you're driving heavy family SUVs with hybrid powertrains, because they're kind of they're kind of heavy, but still a good place to test out either 512 horsepower for the SE Hybrid and up to 729, I think, for the Turbo E-Hybrid. 90 kilometers of range on the electric system, according to European standards. We don't have the official figure for the EPA figures, but expect 70 kilometers, which is not so bad. I mean, you're up there with the electric range for these type of vehicle. Driving, I don't have to tell you that, it
goes like hell.
Goes like hell at the beginning and then feels heavy in the corners. But, Porsche puts so much into it to try to mitigate that weight, right? So it drives, like a Cayenne. Hybrid technologies on the racetrack, as you know, the braking is never the same, which is the only downside really I found about that vehicle is that.
Yeah, but again,
who's going to drive it on the racetrack? You're going to tell me, right? So it's kind of weird pedal feedback, but don't get it bother you because it's never going to happen on the road. On the road in Spain was magnificent drive. It can go from sport mode to comfort mode. It really changes from those two modes. And again, it's a Cayenne drive. It's a signature Cayenne drive, but with full electric range.
If it's one thing that the Porsche engineers do well, it's the change of the character of the car according to the modes that you select.
Yes.
But these cars, these hybrid Cayennes exist because for one reason, it's because of the tax rates in Europe, and if it's a hybrid, it's less expensive to put on the road in certain markets and things like that. So that's why, and plus there's some cities that are sort of like want you to drive through the city in electric mode and things like. There's more and more of that's coming with regards to city centers in Europe. So that's the reason why these cars exist. We get the benefit of them here in North America, even though perhaps it's not quite as significant for us as it is obviously for Porsche in the European market. They have to develop these cars for the European market and elsewhere, and so we sort of like get the benefit from that.
Also, for our market, and we're going to talk about the coupe version because compromises on the coupe version. We have to mention it because on the hybrid. On the hybrid vehicles, they lose a little more on the floor because of the battery, right? The battery's in the rear,
less cargo area.
So a combustion engine Cayenne S will give you 772 liters in the rear, right? In normal configurations. The volume drops to 627 with the S, but the E-Hybrid, right? So you kind of it's quite the chunk. It's significant.
Yeah.
But if you're going with the coupe version, it drops to 434 liters, right? So it's something that if you're looking, I need a family vehicle. I like the coupe shape. I need the hybrid because I'm going from home to work, and then you got to think about the 434 liters of cargo if it's not enough. But it's I feel that it's plenty. It's more than a sedan, right? So there's always plenty of space, but still that coupe shape is, and the hybrid battery is kind of eating up a little bit of that space. One thing I really appreciated in the Cayenne, and I think it's making its way through the Porsche lineup, is that the infotainment system in Porsche, I always a little bit of complaints about it because complicated, the buttons, even in the 911, it was kind of out of reach, a little bit difficult to use. And this one has the latest version of the Porsche infotainment system, and I can say that finally it suits my needs and is very, very much simpler to use than what I experienced in the past. Talking about pricing for these two variants. Yeah, you see me coming with the 6 digits, but still, I mean, that's what they cost, right? So starting price of $113,700 for the SE Hybrid, which is between the two, was my favorite. And because the big 8, it felt heavy in the front. It's a little different, and it's 729 horsepower. I mean, if you really want that performance, go for it. But at 512 horsepower with the SE Hybrid,
it's plenty.
Combined with 70 kilometers of range, I mean, it's a good package. It's $113,700 starting price. If you're looking at the more expensive one, it's $171,200 for the 720 horsepower. But still, I think it's less expensive than the Turbo GT variant, which is the full gas. So which is goes upwards. So for that, I mean, we can say that there's a little bit of value there.
Yeah. And Porsche won't pay the luxury tax for you on that, but they will do it on a Taycan.
I saw that. I saw that. I got the message from
because
that.
Because they're selling the Cayenne, the Taycan, not so much.
Yeah, that's right. Gab, on the next episode, we heard all about the new Santa Fe. You told us what the features and the technologies and whatnot, but we'll finally hear what you really think about it on the next episode.
Yeah, because I went to drive it in Korea, but the embargo only lifts next week.
Yep.
So I'll be able to give you a bit some feedback on what it's like to actually drive the vehicles down the road. We did a significant number of miles there, so I think I've got a pretty good feel for the new 5th generation Santa Fe. So we'll tell you all about it on the next episode.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear about it. For my part, different vehicle, the AMG GT Coupe, which I had the chance to drive in the 63 version.
You're driving way too many expensive cars. You need to come down
that's right.
and drive a Santa Fe once in a while.
Yes, I promise you I will. For the next episodes, I got a full lineup of cars that I borrowed, and they're more in my budget, for my personal budget. And for the AMG GT, obviously, it's a new vehicle for this year. It gets a new platform. It gets 4MATIC Plus all-wheel drive, which was only rear-wheel drive in the past. So a vehicle that has sustained quite a few changes, but still looks terrific and still goes like hell. So I'm going to be able to talk to you about it next week on the 21st episode.
And we want to know if the car has any soul. That's important.
Yes, well, I'll let you know at the next.
Is it as soulful as a 911? That's what I want to know.
That's the comparisons that we make.
There you go.
Thanks everybody for watching and listening for the Car Guide podcast. You can see everything about the technical specs and our reviews on the website carguideweb.com, and also follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So thank you, Gab, for your time again, and we'll see you very shortly next week for the 21st episode.
All right. So long, everybody, and take care.
Yeah.